Good evening, model railroaders, and welcome back to the Second Section podcast, the show where it's just a couple of guys talking about model railroading. And tonight we have a great show for you. With me, as always, is my co-host, rain or shine, well or sick, Mike Ostertag. Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing just great.
Cheeto or no Cheeto?
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm doing fan-flippin-tastic.
Yeah. You sound like a rusty chainsaw.
That's, you know what? That's a step up from the way I was feeling all of the last couple of days.
Yeah. Outstanding.
Yeah.
That's
all
real
right.
tough.
That's all right. It's got to go through these things sometimes.
And
It kind of gives you that radio voice.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's well, I definitely got the face for radio. I mean,
That Carton of Lucky's song.
yeah. What is it? Wasn't that Madge? Wasn't that Joey Tribbiani's
Right.
wasn't that her name, Madge or Marge or whatever it is?
Her
How's it
his
going,
agent, yeah.
Boy, do I got a deal for you, Joey.
oh my gosh, that's a throwback. And
Yeah.
back with us tonight on the show is Mike Rose. Mike, welcome. Welcome back to the
everybody.
Second Section. How are
Glad
you
to be
doing?
back. I'm doing great for an old duffer.
An old duffer. All right, that sounds good. So Mike joins us from the crew call with Mike Rose and his podcast. And tonight he's going to be sharing some work that he did with MRH, correct?
Right. This is it's actually it's one half of the two-part article is out in the current issue.
Yeah.
And the next one will be out in about 2 weeks ish, because I think they come out middle of the month typically.
Okay, that's awesome. So we'll have to tune in for part 2.
I didn't give you a sneak peek here.
Oh, we might even get a sneak peek tonight. That sounds great. And Mike, since we've talked last, we've had a few more people join the show on a regular basis. So if you'd be so kind as to give yourself an introduction on who you are, what you do these days, and what you're modeling.
Well, I've been modeling for, I told somebody this the other day and I just thought, oh man, more than half a century.
Wow.
Because I started in my early teens. And
Yeah.
but the stuff that I like is really the last 10 years. That's the stuff that I'm finally happy with. And the majority of my layout was built within the last 10 years. The only thing going back to the original is bench work in the original train room. But the layout's gotten bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
And I built an addition in my house, and I think the layout was largely the driving force for that too. So it's about 1,800 square feet of
Oh my gosh.
railroad, which is about right, I think. I've been writing articles for a long time. Probably have I guess over 200 articles in print. Been in a couple of books and things like that, and
Yeah.
for a period of time, went around to all the train meets and did a lot of clinics, sometimes on weathering and sometimes on just what was going on with the layout.
Yeah.
And you do that for X amount of time, and you stop going to so many train shows. I think it was after
Sure.
my divorce that I went to all the train shows. I was going to WPM in California and Naperville and Cocoa Beach and
Sure.
Philly area. I mean, wherever they were at, yep, I was hitting the road and going to it. So I met a lot of people at these shows, many of which are lasting friendships. So
Yeah.
you click with compatible people that you come across. So that was kind of a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. So
And, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
you're modeling HO scale, right?
HO scale, Conrail, 1984.
1984.
The Lehigh line, which
Yeah.
is there's different sections of it.
Okay.
The most of the Lehigh line that's still in use these days by class ones is not what I'm modeling. I'm modeling much of what I'm modeling is what Reading and Northern is using today.
Okay. Okay.
So I go from my northern staging yard on Conrail is Sayre. And that was a major yard for Lehigh Valley, and for a while it was on Conrail, but of course when Conrail took over all these predecessor roads, they had to look for different places to get some economy going. So
Yeah, right.
they really focused on Allentown Yard. Allentown would be the south staging yard on my layout.
Okay. So what's the primary traffic then that your model railroad, I guess, would be hauling through the Lehigh line here?
Well, it's interesting because the original railroad has gotten rebuilt a whole bunch of times before I really got my existing concept. And the original train room, which is one half of the basement, focuses on the line from Sayre all the way down to Pittston. So in the old days, Pittston was actually my southern staging yard.
Yeah.
And I had done all the little towns in between, and a big Procter and Gamble mill at Mahoopany. Several grain elevators, a lot of lumber and building materials dealers. That was the primary series of industries that were on this line. It almost seemed like every other town had a grain elevator and a lumber dealer.
Yeah, right.
There was also in Towanda a big masonite factory.
Yep.
They got all-door boxcars, and I do model that. And there's a Sylvania facility, Osram Sylvania, that's now called Global Tungsten, and I think they do high-end filament-based lighting products. I don't even know really there's still a market for that, but maybe it's tubes used in other kinds of things. I don't know, but back in the day, they used to get mainly tank cars full of chemicals.
So you have quite the diversity of traffic on your layout.
Well, it gets better because when I expanded into the other side of my basement, and particularly once I got the addition going and I expanded again into that, that incorporated now a whole bunch more things. So I have 2 short lines and another major railroad on the railroad that interchange with Conrail. There's a little short line in Towanda called the TMSL, which is the Towanda Monroe Shippers Lifeline. And it's a little SW1 and 1 or 2 grain hoppers that they pick up in Towanda and trundle all the way down to Monroe to a mill there. No longer in use, but the track is owned by Reading and Northern. There's potential for it someday, but there hasn't been a train on there in some years. But in my era, that was a regular operation. And then, of course, the Pocono Northeast, which operated in and out of the greater Scranton and Pittston and Wilkes-Barre areas. And they basically roamed all over the place on branch lines that Conrail spun off. And they ran in and out of Taylor Yard. They ran in and out of Pittston Yard. They had a little yard in Avoca that I model, which is, I think, a former EL facility.
Oh, my gosh.
And the D&H, of course, modeling Taylor, I modeled their crossing in connection with Conrail and DuPont. So that was like a major scenic element to build and get into place. So there's a lot of interaction with Conrail on my layout, which is good because in my era, Conrail only ran 2 road trains a day. They ran a northbound and a southbound, roughly 12 hours apart.
Okay. So
usually in our operations pattern, and if I'm going too far down the rabbit hole with operations,
no.
But
is there such a thing?
You'll find out. If we start like with the beginning of what I call the operating pattern, let's say we're running a northbound ALCG that runs from Allentown to Corning Gang Mills on the way to Buffalo, but basically a Buffalo train would pick up from Gang Mills. In my era, they didn't run all the way to Buffalo like they used to. That train will stop at Pittston and at Mahoopany. And usually dropping off large cuts of cars in each location.
Yeah.
And then it picks up large cuts of cars and continues on to its destination. Those cuts that have been dropped off are now dealt with by the guy who's working Pittston Yard, usually my buddy Dave,
Yeah.
or the guy who's running Mahoopany, which is often me if it's just the two of us. Although in the last op session, Joe Posick was running Mahoopany and Mike Confalone was taking locals. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of locals that operated out of Pittston. These locals would go to Scranton. They would go to the Kaiser Valley Industrial Park. They would go to Crestwood Industrial Park. They would go to Jenkins on another local. So these locals went all over the place. And I always liked locals. You know what I mean? There's usually a good mix of traffic on the train. Sometimes the local works with the yard guy to make up his train. Sometimes the yard guy makes it up for him. Usually when they get to their destination, they've got all kinds of work. So it's not uncommon, really, to send somebody out on a local. And you don't hear from them for, hour and a half, 2 hours.
That's awesome.
There are times when, if it's just my buddy Dave and I running trains, he might be in one end of the basement and I'm in the other, and I don't talk to him for like an hour. Sometimes we're working cooperatively in a particular spot. Sometimes we're right on top of each other, and I'm like, can I get by here? That kind of thing. But usually it's not that big a problem in 1,800 square feet.
No, that's awesome that you can just almost isolate yourself and get lost,
right,
and still have the feel of a big layout.
It's designed that way. It's designed so that you feel like you're going somewhere.
Right.
Doing something when you get there, and then coming back. If you were just to run point to point at a normal track speed, it would probably take you about 24 minutes, give or take. So it's a pretty good mainline run. But that road train that I mentioned would probably take an hour and a half by the time it works in the various places it has to work and wait when it needs to wait and that kind of thing.
It's funny too, because one of the recurring themes on the show that we've had is scale, right? So even like colors and the color of a locomotive or the sheen or the finish of a locomotive. You don't want it too shiny. You don't want it too matte. The size of a scene, but you think of the scale of operations then too, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're allowed to essentially get the sense that you've gone from place to place, and to be able to create that on a 1,800 square foot layout is really kind of awesome.
Yeah, I kind of, really, I did not learn to operate on my own layout. I was way behind guys like, Mike Confalone. I basically learned to operate on his layout. And for the longest time, I was actually more familiar with his layout than my own. You have to operate on a layout to really get to know it. Yeah. And a lot of the operational concepts that I use were things that I learned at his house. I basically stole everything I liked and made a few changes for my own liking in terms of the paperwork and things like that. But we all use the same throttle settings that MC came up with himself. Through hours and hours of testing. There's a reason we call him Mr. Fussy. So
okay.
Really?
Oh, yeah. He does all of our backdrop work. He just completed a backdrop for Pittston Junction for me. So he's done backdrop work for Neil Schofield and for Jim Dufour and Jim Reddington, and he does great. Everybody has sort of a specialty. So we all kind of leverage that amongst ourselves. You know what I mean? So it's nice to have these complementary skills and a lot of overlap in terms of technique and ability, and I take a lot from these guys, and I'm not ashamed to say it, and rocked with it.
Yeah, exactly. This is quite the intro, Mike. So it's going to be interesting how we've kind of set the scene up here to talk about our main I guess course this evening of the deep scene.
This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, so
it's going to be great.
Don't oversell it now.
Oh, we're going to totally oversell.
Oh, it's over. It's going to be oversold.
And we're gonna
Yeah.
totally oversell it. And
We're going to be kicking the crying kids off of the
Yeah.
flight by the time this thing leaves the gate. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
so before we get started into our segments here, speaking of introductions, we have over 60 folks on the live stream watching us this evening.
Sweet.
Yes, so I think it's time to give some shout outs here as we go through. First one in here was Mike Shanky at 6:38 this evening. Says, good evening, everyone. Kenneth Schmidt is here. Ryan Folk, David Winther, Wigwag Workshop. Hey there, folks. Chris Bell is here this evening. We have Chris Holzbach here as well. Welcome, Chris. Chris, it's the Chris show tonight. Welcome. Iron River 11 is here. Gary Cobes is here. Nick LaRusso, Thomas Imlay, John Rose, asking if the band is ready. The Greasy Meat
No
Hands
relation.
Band. No relation. No relation. Thomas Klamoski's here this evening. Randy Timmerman, Graham Stockfield, welcome from Mackenzie Hill, Australia.
Wow.
Paul
Time is it
Scott
there?
from I believe the Pittsburgh area is here this evening. And he models the Chicago Northwestern Mondovi line. Paul Scott August, welcome, Paul. Beerline Modeler is here this evening. Welcome. Tim D, Joe DeLusso, the Chicago, Denver, and Northern is here. Welcome. Let's see, Stephen Gilligan is here tonight. Tom Holly, good evening. N Scale Shenanigans is in the house this evening. Welcome. Brandon is here. Welcome. Jerry Jackson is here as well. Box Ride and Boomer Dioramas has some sad news to report that they tore down the Milner grain elevator today. So our condolences, Boomer, but welcome to the show. Soko Olds is here, 455, and Ralph Renzetti, Roger Moses, and oh my gosh, Paul H is here this evening. Jeremiah Lighthouse has been a poster on the Facebook page is here. Santa Ana and Industrial Lead is here as well. Fantastic showing tonight. We're up to 67. I'm going to give the usual like, share, and subscribe to the show. Every subscription, every like helps support our podcast. Well, we got another one here. Dave, looks like Dave Percy. Welcome, Dave. Tom O'Connell is here. Welcome, Tom. Big contributor to the Facebook page as well. I think Tom won Workbench of the Week on the last show. So anyways, good showing from the section crew this evening. And it looks like more and more people are starting to filter in. So the rules for the chat are as follows. Keep it civil, keep it model railroad related. That way I don't have to boot you. If you have questions for Mike or any of the stuff, Mike Rose or Mike Ostertag for that matter, any questions, be sure to fire them into the chat tonight. I'll get them up on screen and we can discuss them as we go. So tonight's format's going to be a little different. We're not going to do what's on your workbench this evening. We did that last time. So tonight we're going to be doing our hashtag not sponsored segment. We're going to talk about a few products and things that we're particularly excited about. And then we're going to talk about the article that Mike Rose had just recently released in Model Railroad Hobbyist, and it's going to be a hootenanny because it deals with developing a scene with quite a bit of depth to it. So I'm looking forward to that. So Mike Ostertag, how you feeling? I saw you went back, got a cough drop, everything.
I have no cough drops.
You have no cough drops? Oh,
no, but Joy had some lemon drops in her purse, so
just as good, right?
I confiscated those.
Just as good. So, anyways, late straggler here, Justin. Oh, I can't pronounce that name. Jankowskis.
Justin Jankowskis. Hey, Justin.
Welcome to the show. Can't wait to see more about this DuPont scene. So, excellent. Before we get rolling on the next segment here, I know that Mike Ostertag, do you have any things for what's on, or for the hashtag not sponsored this evening?
I do, but I don't have it pulled up right now. But
Okay.
right before the show, James Wiggin from Athern
Yeah.
was giving his Train Tuesday little dealie that he does
Sure
quite
thing.
often, and he does a great job with that. And they announced, I believe, a new run of the ACF 4600 3-bay covered hoppers, center
Yeah.
flow covered hoppers,
Yeah.
and Western Pacific, Akron, Canton, and Youngstown,
ACY.
ACY.
Nice.
Oh, there's two other railroads in there too. Those are the two that stood out to me right off the top.
Mhm.
But they're just beautiful cars, just
Yeah.
gorgeous cars. And they also announced another run of the trailer train 89-foot twin 45 piggyback flats
Oh, really?
in like a Kansas City Southern, and then TTX brown, TTX yellow. I can't remember. I can't just off the top of my head. I can't remember all of them. But then they also were doing 45-foot trailers to go along with them, sold separately, or as a car and a single trailer, set. The flat car is a Genesis car, but the trailers are not. The trailers are part of the Athern line. So so when you buy the car with the trailer on it, it'll be in a Genesis box, but the trailer is not Genesis type of thing. You know what I mean?
Is that the ones with? Is that the 45-foot Freyhoff trailer?
Yeah. They're doing Clipper. They're doing Transamerica.
I have it set up here on
Do
screen.
you have it set up here? Yeah,
and it's going to be right to
Mike's,
maybe right to Mike Rose's liking here.
Yeah, this is Mike. This is kind of right up your alley.
This 80s era.
Yes,
like mid 80s and like even into the 90s. They're doing like I said, Transamerica, Clipper, and then
we got Rio Grande here. It looks like.
No, those are from the previous run.
Oh, that's from the previous run.
Yeah, that's not the newest run.
It's BN and
no, there it is, right there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should I be seeing the pictures too?
Do it. Am I not?
I only see a red screen and three little boxes of us.
How's that?
Now just a red screen.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Maybe because I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah. Pull your screen back, and let's see if we can't get it sorted out here.
Ah, there they are.
Look at that.
So the release of these trailers spans like a long time. But here's the big thing, right? They're doing this stuff. They're doing, especially the 45-foot trailers, N scale guys. They're doing them in N scale.
Yeah.
And they're doing the flats in N scale. It's one of those things that hasn't been done yet. Oh, Vermont Railway is another one of the covered hoppers.
Yep.
But it was a really cool announcement. If I was an HO scale, which everybody is well aware I'm not, but if I was, I would be. There were things in there where I'm like, okay, here, just take my money.
Here,
Burlington Northern. Yeah, Burlington Northern is a trailer.
Yep.
Clipper, Transamerica, and then oh man, I can't remember what the fourth one was.
Southern
really
Pacific
neat.
Golden Pig I saw in there.
Yeah.
That was on a different run.
Okay.
This newest run is 4 new road names, but it's just a really cool announcement. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Something else to that Athern is doing really well. They seem to have that piggyback flat deal kind of down, but
yeah, they do.
Yeah. So that's what I've got.
Okay. Mike Rose, did you have anything that's been, I guess, tickling your fancy as of late in terms of new products or even old products that you really just are just in love with?
The only thing that just caught my eye was Bowser is
Mm,
bringing out the D&H RS3Ms, which really are the only locomotive that I still need. I
really?
probably need to sell some stuff, but don't we all? When
Bow.
I was at Neil Schofield's this weekend, I asked him how many operating locos he had, for his
Yeah,
session. And I think he said he had like 45 or 49 or something like that. And
really.
Confalone has probably a few more than that, but not that. Maybe in the 50s, I think. And I have 145, which is probably too much.
What? What?
What?
Yeah, wait a minute. You have 145 operating functional locomotives on your layout,
Give or take.
Oh my
plus or
gosh.
minus. Wow.
But it's in my defense. D&H always had a lot of locos on every train, so you need 5 or 6 of them really for a D&H train, and we might run 4 or 5 different D&H trains. There's 25 locos right there.
Yeah, right.
P&E has 3 locos. TMSL has 1, give or take.
Yeah, I know. I love that. Give or take.
And once you get locked into a serious Conrail collection, the tendency is to just take it all away. So I don't have one U23B. I have 5.
Right. So these are pretty good looking locomotives here. The D&H though, they've always had a really awesome paint scheme.
Right.
Are
Now
they?
for my era, I'll have to paint out on the long hood and put the big numbers.
Okay. So I got a question then for you.
They did so.
Is this bicentennial unit? Is that allowed on your line?
I've never been crazy about those. That might sound like sacrilege, but I never liked the Conrail labor management stickers on the Dash 840Bs, and I didn't even really like the Conrail quality slogan being the new name of the railroad. I'm kind of a purist in that regard.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, these are really, I mean, so I just, not to toot my own horn, but I'm going to. I just picked up a bunch of Bowser Chicago Northwestern C628s. I love Bowser's locomotives.
Yep, it's a good product.
They really are good, high level detail, and just I don't know. I like the oddball stuff that they come out with too.
I'll probably order mine unsounded and do the install myself.
There you go.
Because all my locos have power packs and scale sound speakers.
Yeah.
So I find that if I'm doing my own install from scratch, I can pretty much make space for all of that. Most factory locomotives that are sounded will have a factory motherboard and a plug-in decoder mounted on it, and a so-so speaker typically for most factory sounded units. So I have to upgrade that anyway, and I need to find a place for the power pack. So it's sometimes easier just for me to wire it myself.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what those 145 are.
Oh man. So let me just maybe, does everyone have sound in them?
Oh yeah.
So it must sound like thunder in your basement.
Well, it could. So one of the things that we've found is that if let's say you're running by yourself on your layout, which a lot of people, I think, I don't know if they do that, but at the beginning of the pandemic, Confalone said, "Why aren't we running our railroads?" And I thought, and it was actually a revelation for me because I was always geared around op sessions. 4 or 5 people come over, and you're kind of orchestrating all of that. But running my layout by myself made me really understand each and every job and every aspect of it in a way that I never would have done otherwise.
Sure.
And I found it really interesting to do. It took me like weeks and weeks to run through an entire cycle. But a lot of the things that I learned in the process of that have become part of the regular operational scheme. So the way the scheme works is wherever we stop, that's where we start the next time. And the only thing that happens in between sessions is you restage a road train in
Sure.
the yard. So it means that prep for the op session is pretty minimal. That's important for me because I don't have a lot of time for busy work. I know when Mike stages his layout, it probably takes him, 2 to 3 hours just to play with the manifests, the card system that he uses. Yeah. And he, at the time he did that, I think he was very interested in what was in the car, where it was coming from, and the routing and all that stuff. And he has a card for inbound and a card for outbound, and he's filing and all of this stuff. And I looked at all of that and thought, that's a clerk's job, not what I'm interested in doing. So in my case, I'm using a double-sided waybill.
There you go.
And inbound and outbound, and the card travels with the car. If the car comes off and goes into an A-line box, card goes with it. So I just, haven't lost too many cards. Lost a few cars, and had to the best one was, I think, I lost a CN box card that we could not find. We looked everywhere. We thought, how do you lose a car? And eventually we found it underneath in state, like in a hidden piece of trackage. It had fallen off a train. And so I said to Dave, I said, okay, how did this car fall off a train?
Yeah.
And the train made it to staging and it rejoined itself. Maybe reconnected on a grade, ran in and automatically recoupled. Because if you get there and there's no caboose, you think, I think I'm missing part of my train. But this car was lost for weeks.
Oh, man.
Because you don't think of a train being able to lose a car and still get to its destination. Very, very freak occurrence.
Oh, my gosh.
Mike, did you find that when you were running your jobs on your own, did you ever go down and say, this is a pain in the ass? We got to change the way this job is worked. There's something isn't right with this, or then you say, wow, why do I run this job when the way I'm doing it? Because there's really not enough to actually justify it being on there. We could do something different. Did you find yourself kind of revamping your operations a little bit after doing it by yourself?
A little bit. More of it, I think, got revamped when my buddy Dave started coming over again. He's a former professional dispatcher. He worked for in the Boston area for his whole career. He's retired now, but he knows a lot about ops. And I started out in the B&M. So we debate things. And just like the real railroads, they'd modify a job, they'd abolish a job. Then they'd realize that didn't work and reinstate a job. I mean, this is a very common thing on the real railroads. The other thing is that traffic on my model railroad kind of goes in patterns organically on its own. I'm not really orchestrating much of anything. So sometimes you got to run an extra. Mahoopin is short of cars, or Pittston's getting too full, or there's too many cars in Taylor. We need to run a D&H train. You know what I mean? So we're kind of responding to traffic conditions in real time. Wow. Now, when I was operating the Kaiser Valley, I ran the Kaiser Valley for about roughly a year with no scenery. And I just wanted to see how it was going to go. And after operating it for a while, I realized that I needed to make the runaround longer and the tail track shorter in order to do that. And that's the big change that I made there, that really has paid a lot of dividends, because if the runaround's not long enough and you have a uselessly long tail track, it's going to impede switching operations.
Right.
So things like that. But most of the layout was pretty much intact before the addition. Remember, what I did was, in building the addition, I took sections of the existing railroad, moved them out into the addition, and then added connective tissue in between, which is a very kind of unorthodox way of having to do it.
Connective tissue. I like
that's a good term.
There's a good term.
So, and I knew what I wanted to do in these interstitial spaces. So that was kind of like based on the prototype in most of those cases. So a lot of the track arrangements are very prototypically based.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
Man, I think that's.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around 145 locomotives, man.
Yeah.
So you asked about the sound. So I digress there. But what I began to say was, let's say you're switching the yard. You're the only guy in the room. It's nice to have a nice Jeep, wind up that 567 and just enjoy it. You know what I mean? And you probably want it at a decent volume for that. So keep a few locos at that volume. But what we found was, in op sessions, if your locos are too loud, it'll just drive you out of the room. It's just nuts. So we have incrementally lowered our volumes, at the same time leaving the horns up, because we want horns that'll peel paint at 25 feet. So
make your ears bleed.
You stand at a grade crossing, that's what the horn does to you, right? So, so we like loud horns. We like softer bells, because the bell.
I was going to ask, do you have this is a terrible tangent, and I apologize for this, but during operating sessions, is there the one guy that just leaves the bell on the whole time?
We usually yell at that guy.
Yeah, okay.
See, if I ever showed up knowing that, I'd be that guy, just because.
We don't handle guys like you.
The last time Mike Ostertag and I operated together at a layout, he looked at me like, I'm pushing the bell, and he just let it run the whole time.
I got yelled at too. So
at the volume we have the bells at, they're pretty much non-intrusive. In a couple of cases, I went a little too far with some of the end cap switches, and I need to boost them a little bit. But it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, amazing.
So the answer is, what you want is a situation where, let's say you've got a yard switcher, and a road freight arrives with 3 or 4 locos on it. You don't want that to just completely drown out the yard switcher, so you don't even hear it. Yeah,
we're
looking for a balance.
Yeah, looking for a good balance.
If they're selling ice cream.
Yeah, a couple of good comments coming in here on Scale Shenanigans. We asked those guys if they're selling ice cream. Split Rock, I feel singled out now. F1 function forever.
That's really a day job, I think.
The next one's pretty good too.
This one here.
Yeah, the cow's dead.
I tell my engineer trainees who leave it on, cow's dead. Let's see here. Oh, the bells. But that's good stuff there. Well, that's a cool announcement, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. I saw him at Train Fest. I didn't even think twice about it either, too, to stop by and chat with them, because they do make some cool stuff over at Bowser.
This was a long-awaited loco, because it's not just a chopped-nosed IRS-3. The hood is 6 inches higher, and it had to be right. I've seen and actually worked on in the course of doing installs for other customers. I guess somebody offered a resin shell for that, and it didn't look bad. But the last one that I worked on, I basically had to treat it as a kit, because it just kind of fell apart while I worked on it. I had to sort of rebuild it as I was putting it back together. So I think a high quality modern shell and good running mechanism is what we need.
Yeah, for sure.
The last loco that I buy. You believe that, right?
Sure.
I'm going on record here. You can hold me to it.
Well, hold on. Let me write this down.
No, yeah, write it down right now.
You do it.
So
This is time stamped. Also, you know
Two-
that, Mike, right?
2 RS3Ms is all I'm going to get.
2 RS3Ms of what railroad?
D&H.
D&H.
Okay, so yeah, I know I knew D&H, but I mean, which paint scheme?
Lightning Strike.
The lightning stripe. Okay, remember, make sure that's detailed
right-
information. Andy, writing that
I'm
down.
writing it. I'm writing it
Writing
down.
it down.
I'm
Yep.
writing
And
it
as
down.
soon as we
I'll
see,
post pictures of it. I mean, it's a year away. But,
and as soon as I see 3 of them in different numbers on his layout, I am throwing the BS flag so quick.
I'm not ruling out another one appearing, but it won't be mine.
Oh,
It'll be a
okay.
guest loco. It
Your
happens.
Oh,
guest equipment on
yeah,
your
that's
layout.
deep.
Could
Yeah,
happen.
That's fantastic.
That's awesome.
fantastic.
That's
Oh, my wife would just love it if I said it was the last locomotive I was going to buy. But we'd all.
Well,
You know-
I didn't even feel that way until I did an inventory recently, and I thought, really, 145? Like, how did that even happen, right?
How,
Just
over
happened.
what, like, so they're in operation. How many years? Over how many years?
How long
time is-
have I had 145 ready to go?
Well, just
Or how long did
let-
it take for you to accumulate
to
that many?
accumulate this? This wasn't an overnight
I mean,
deal.
some of these locos go, way back. I don't have any more Atherton Blue Box or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I've got, I've got some like original run Cato SD40s.
There you go.
I'm trying to think what else would be that old.
Those were a good. That's a good engine.
Those are
Very,
good.
very reliable engine.
Bullet-
Very
Bulletproof
reliable
mechanism.
engine. Yep.
And you can't beat a good old Atlas GP38 or a GP40.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Those were good engines. The U23B, good engine.
Yep.
B23, great. Another great Atlas locomotive. I mean, these tend to be favorites. Lately, I've been running a lot of end cab switchers too. I've become a modern fan of them. A couple of pups will really pull on the locos going up the 2% grade there to Taylor.
That's
Those tend to be proto SW 1200 chassis, and then whatever shell I need on it.
I mean, and
Good
I mean,
chassis.
you could really get into it though. Conrail had a fairly extensive rebuild program too, right?
Right.
So you could, I mean, didn't they have like the GP8s and what was
Those,
GP?
yeah. So I had planned to build, I don't know if it's 4 or 5 of them, and I've built 3, and I have 2 more like in various stages of assembly. Those don't count. I already bought those.
What about didn't
Those are already
Conrail have
like total.
didn't Conrail have that GP12 program too, where they
No,
put
that was ICG.
That was Illinois
Was it?
Central
that was Illinois where they
Conrail
had
was
the
GP10 and GP8.
and GP8.
where they put the EMD prime movers in the RS3s.
That's different. That we typically call that the DeWitt rebuild program, and they had a couple of different hood styles. I have one of those. I converted an old Atlas Cato RS3 into that. A little slippery. There's not much room under that hood once you put a whole sound install in it.
You
So
see what we're doing here, don't you, Mike?
I know, yeah.
You see what we're doing, right? We're,
You want
we're
a
trying
whole
to
story,
we're
right?
trying to bait you into finding something that you need. Kind of trying to poke the bear a little bit to see
Yeah.
if there's
No.
something that you need or
I would say it kind of took care of that in maybe about 2 years ago. I went on just like a local building binge where I had stuff that had been in boxes forever,
Yeah.
and part of it I think was also I was in the process of kind of organizing and consolidating stuff that was all over the house, all over the basement, and the model shop is a pretty good sized room, and it's got shelving in every nook and cranny possible. So as I started to like rediscover this stuff, I'm talking about stuff that had been sitting in a drawer since the 90s, that kind of stuff. So I decided to just kind of get some of that going because I wanted a little more variety in the motive power.
Yeah.
yeah. I got my railroads mixed up. Mopac had the GP12. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Not
Yeah,
close
very
enough.
good.
Whatever.
Good stuff, Mike. So I'll share my little I guess hashtag not sponsored things that I found were cool. I have 2 of them this week, and one of them is going to serve as an amazing segue into our main topic discussion this evening. So,
Interesting.
yeah, the first thing that I want to bring up is, so there's a company out there called Northwestern Models. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And they are a company that are
Big
putting
red
out.
box.
Oh, you got the big red box again?
Yep.
Oh, hopefully the folks on screen can see it. Mike Ostertag, you can see it, can you?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Must be something I'm doing, making Mike's life a little tough over there. But the Northwestern
Sounded
model.
interesting. Be very descriptive.
I'll try to paint a word picture.
Oh,
Okay, so the Northwestern models, they focus on the Iron Range, Minnesota, the DM&N and DMIR series cars, and they've just released a series of ore jennies that are, I believe, 3D printed, and they're in the U9, 10, and 11 series ore cars.
Wow.
And so this is the detail on a 3D printed ore car. They come as a kit. They have Tishy brake wheels that are with them, laser printed decals that come with the kits. And you can see that for a resin kit or a 3D print kit, the rivet detail is pretty pronounced, and the car looks pretty darn good and
do they say
true
what
to
they're
the.
doing for weight, Andy?
No, I don't have that right off the cuff here, Mike. But they're solid, basically 3D prints. So I'm gonna guess that you'll have to, if you really want a substantial weight to them, you'll have to add some sort of load to them to get them to track pretty well.
One of the things we do is we tend to run heavy cars.
Yeah.
I'm probably twice in a standard.
So yeah, so do I. I mean, and that's just from my standpoint, one for tracking purposes, but then it goes back to that scale, right? Of
But you
the
see
scale.
the feel of a train.
Yeah, you get a really good feeling. For
It can also make for a terrifying runaway. I just would point out.
No, you have to
gaining speed sound. It's like, uh-oh, low strikes again.
And so I run iron ore on my layout, and I actually use live loads with grout, and so that's even a scarier endeavor to have.
Have you had any mishaps?
I've had one, but I was uncoupling the train and I knocked it over myself. So it wasn't anything to do with the track work. It had to do with my greasy meat hands fumbling the uncouple.
Clean up on aisle 3.
Yeah, clean up on aisle 3. And then my second I guess hashtag not sponsored, things that I'm pretty excited about. A lot of people may know about this, but I feel like I should bring it up anyway. We've talked about publications before in the past here, but Model Railroad Hobbyist is a free online magazine that is out there that essentially you can pick up and start reading today. They have quite an extensive web page here with a discussion forum, blogs, different types of community aspects to it, and then the actual the magazines themselves. You can have adverts right in there that you can essentially click on, and it'll take you right to the manufacturer or the vendor's webpage. So pretty cool magazine in terms of, keeping up with technology and being an online publication. It's been around for a while. So this is mainly for folks that are new to the hobby, but they also have a paid version, which I am a subscriber to, the Running Extra. And there's quite, I would say, quite a bit of value that you get for that $2.99 per month. There's handful of columnists that are in there, different, I guess, articles about scales and methods on how to do things. I think Jim Six has a column in there called The Limited Modeler, which is a really interesting read as well. And our guest this evening is also a columnist for Model Railroad Hobbyist, and has recently published a article in the latest release here. And is that's in the running extra this month?
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned my old buddy Jim Six, because I think it might have been his first column as the limited modeler.
Yeah.
And of course, Jim's written like hundreds and hundreds of articles. I used to read his stuff in Craftsman back in the day. He was a Conrail modeler, and I have a couple of his ex-Conrail engines here, that used to, but so he did this limited modeler column, and then it was juxtaposed with my column where I was talking about my addition.
Yeah.
So
the opposite.
So one of the comments, because people can post comments, and he said, so I'm reading Jim Six's article, on the limited modeler, and then I read Mike Rose's, and it's like, hold my beer. It's one of my favorite article comments of all time.
That's
a little
awesome.
Different approach.
And that's the other thing about MRH is you can go back and leave comments about the article right on their website too. So that's kind of interesting to get that feedback from the readers, like right there. I
get to go check that. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. But Tom O'Connell does have a question. Let's see here. It says, Mike Rose, do you change any of the vendors' trucks, or do you stick with what the model came with?
Great question. Honestly, it depends if they suck or not.
Yep.
If they do, they're gone. So I have had problems with certain brands. On the one end of the scale, you've got a company like Tangent.
Right.
The model is just perfect. You weather it, and I cut off the trip pin, and you put it on the layout. And then others not so much. You know what I mean? And I operate trains here. This stuff has to run.
Right.
And sometimes there are certain brands that I don't know if it's the trucks. I don't know what the problem is. Sometimes adding weight helps, but even when everything's engaged, they just don't work well. So sometimes it's as simple as putting some AccuRail trucks on there with the right wheel sets, and away you go. I used to use a lot of oh gosh, why am I drawing a blank here? The not the Intermountain wheel sets, but Reeboks, the ones that have different length axles. I still have a bunch of those around, but those were great because they had an axle that fit anybody's truck. You know what I mean? And sometimes just putting good wheels on a otherwise normal plastic truck makes all the difference in the world.
So I'll have a follow-up there, Mike. So metal wheels for everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then do you standardize your couplers as well?
Well, you could find KD5s on the layout. Obviously I use the semi-scale version of the KDs. Yeah. All of the newer cars have that, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was 20% of it original KDs out there. I haven't had any problems intermixing them.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Not every car, is a, cut levers and air hoses kind of a car. I try to make it so that anything new that goes on the layout has that.
So let me ask. Okay, it's kind of along the line.
You can ask me how many cars I have, aren't you?
No, because I don't want to know.
It's a shameful number.
Okay, so
it's a completely indefensible number.
Are we talking $2,000? Are we talking $2,000?
At one time, it was up to that.
Oh my God, Mike!
But a lot,
my hero.
Come on, dude.
You can always sell them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
right.
I probably sold off 1,000 cars, over the last 10 years.
Well, that's kind of what my question is.
A couple 300, I think.
That's kind of along the lines of what my question is if you have a car that you just feel you no longer want, do you have a drawer full of KD5s and old trucks that, this car's got nice trucks and nice couplers, I'll take the couplers and trucks off, and then put the older stuff on and then get rid of the car. So that way I
Usually
have
the car gets sold as is.
Okay.
A-line boxes, Thomas.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually the car, almost every year, usually in the winter, like after the holidays, I'll call out, Chris Butts is a friend of mine, and he's like Mr. Freight Car, and he takes great delight in pointing out which cars, because I backdated, he takes great delight in pointing out which cars are no longer appropriate for my era. Or, gee, did you know that car doesn't have a lube panel? Chris is that kind of guy, but sometimes you go on a lube panel party.
We all have a friend like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Well, Chris is the man when it comes to freight car knowledge. I mean, he consults with manufacturers all the time, and he's one of those guys. Like one of the top 3 guys in that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really good.
By the way,
it's a mixed blessing.
Split Rock. We all have that friend. Yep, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And then, so there is a question that, Mike, is it blue tubs? Do you keep all your stuff in blue tubs?
A-line boxes.
A-line boxes. Okay.
I built these wooden roll-around carts that take like 16, I think, A-line boxes per cart, and they fit under the railroad, so it enables you to roll them in and out and do what you need to do. But, until you have your layout like fully fleshed out and start operating it, you don't really know what the car count is that you actually need to operate, right?
Right.
So on a big layout, believe it or not, you don't need to change out cars as much as you do on a small layout, because on a small layout, you see the same cars all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that might bother you and it might not, but I like some natural variety.
Sure.
But what I'm finding is, I think on the layout right now is probably, I'm going to take a stab and say 320 cars, approximately.
That's not horrible. That's respectable.
No, it's right. So that includes cars at the consignees, cars on trains and staging, period. Now, that means that they're not all visible at the same time. And not every industry gets switched out in every op session. So you might not see a car for 6 weeks, 2 months. By that time, I don't know about you. I can't remember, seeing that car 2 months ago. It's a car, you know what I mean? It's one car. Yeah. So there might be 1 or 2 signature standout cars that if that's how it hits you, I might take that car off the layout for a little bit and then, put it back on a couple of months later, because I don't want to necessarily have that standout car popping up all the time. Just wouldn't feel realistic to me, But what I'm finding is that we've got a lot of boxcar traffic, we've got a lot of covered hopper traffic, and no 2 of them look alike, but I'm looking for the feel of the prototypical train as opposed to, like when I was modeling the 90s, there were a lot of, rolling wrecks that were very interesting to me. And you don't want a high percentage of those cars in your train. And some of those cars that I did are just not era appropriate for me. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but some, a lot of them had a lot of work that went into them, and they're article cars, and hate to part with them,
Do you have all the original boxes still for all the cars?
I tried doing that for a while and then thought, that's not happening. Just not happening.
There was a question I asked as to whether or not people keep their boxes from their original. I
made an attempt at that because I was selling stuff a lot too, so I tried to keep a few of each type of box, and then I realized it's not that important, because everything that I sell, I wrap in bubble wrap, and it's actually better than manufacturers' packaging for shipping stuff.
Right.
Never had a broken freight car being shipped that way.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's good.
So it's kind of a non-issue. So because it was an easy thing to purge.
Well, they suck up a lot of space too, don't they?
A
lot of space.
More than the car itself, obviously,
Right.
So it just gets ridiculous after a while. So the only thing that's in boxes are, new stuff that I haven't built or sold.
Gotcha.
On my webpage, There's a whole section that has personal freight cars that I have available for sale.
Oh, jeez.
So,
Mike, would you do us the honor? What is the web page that you have out there?
mrhobby, HOBBY.com.
mrhobby.com.
Yep. And I
There
made
you
sure
go.
that I took pictures of each car. These are like all one of a kind. They didn't fit my era, or they wore out their welcome, or whatever. But they're all, it's all good stuff.
Yeah, and I'll bring that up on screen here just real quick so everyone can take a quick peek at that. Let's see here, MR Hobby. I think I should have that up there.
I'll take your word for it.
It's there.
Oh, jeez, I don't understand why he can't see this stuff.
Red box.
Yeah, he just gets the red box tonight. We've the second time guests on the show get the red box.
Oh, see, we're
but-
playing that game, eh?
I have seen the website, so I'm good.
Yeah, he knows what it's all about. But it's got different types of services and products out here. And let me see here, modeling info, techniques, concrete booths.
If you look over on the left, there should be 4 or 5 personal this and personal that. And
Personal freight cars,
That's what I'm.
the undecorateds, intermodal. So it looks like here, new in box cars. Look at this. Oh my.
Wow.
Some Athearn, some Atlas.
So I'll be adding more to that probably, like I said, after the
Fox
holidays when I
Valley
get some
models.
time.
Whew, there's some juicy deals out here, Mike. That's for sure. Excellent. So make sure if you're in the market for some box cars or some covered hoppers, check out in HO scale. Check out MR Hobby on the personalized freight cars and see if something fits your fancy. No commission will go to the Second Section podcast. Just to be fair. just to be fair. Fantastic. So, Mike, I want to talk about the latest article that you had out in MRH, and it really was an interesting take on what to do with awkward space in your layout room. So, why don't you, I guess, set the scene for us here on.
Should we pop up some pictures and?
Yeah, let's do a little walkthrough of some pictures. And essentially, let's talk about how you tackled this really odd space, and then to make it look. So if anyone here in the chat or the let me see, can you see that now, Mike?
Well, I could see it on my other monitor, so
there you go.
That'll work. Now, otherwise, I'm getting a red box.
Okay. Let's see here. How about that?
Big red box.
Now you got a bigger red box. Okay. So take us through the picture that you have up here. So we're looking at the.
And these are pictures from the article, but here you'll have the benefit of a little bit of narration, which might be helpful. If you look, can you guys see do you see my cursor moving?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, good. So this opening here used to be a people door entrance to what used to be my office into the basement from the outside. And this wall that you see here was an outside wall of the house. So you can see how the addition was sort of added on here. And you're standing in the addition, looking through the former people door opening into the original train room. So these 2 tracks here are the Conrail Lehigh line coming from DuPont. Right here is probably the tip of, I think, the DuPont Bridge. So DuPont exists almost entirely in the original train room. And you can see that I'm starting to sort of cobble together a hillside here, because really you don't want to be seeing DuPont from this vantage point. So this will act as a kind of a view block. And the Conrail main line comes down along here. There's a set of double crossovers. This is CPYG on the prototype, and this would have been signaled back in the day. And Pittston Junction is, I'm basically standing adjacent to Pittston Junction. You'll also see that there's another track here that goes down into this sort of trough, and it actually goes underneath the Conrail main line on this viaduct here. You'll see a little bit more of that later. This is Taylor Secondary, and it too goes through this opening, curves around, and comes back to Taylor Yard on the other side over here.
Amazing.
Underneath is this is Sayre Staging. There's 4 tracks here that are about, I don't know, maybe 20 feet long. It's curved.
That's
well, like a train length, say.
Substantial.
And it curves around. And then underneath here, believe it or not, is Binghamton Staging, another 4-track yard of similar length. So this is all what needed to be done to get the Conrail main line intact again. Pittston Yard is way over on the left and came out of that room. All of this new bench work and staging was created to kind of service the layout. And what was left was this sort of odd-shaped space here. You can see with snow shovel kind of propped up along the wall here, and this is actually the innards of the wall of the original outside house wall. You can see the foundation right there. So I was in obviously as a first priority, I wanted to get the layout running again, and that's what stage it is at this point. And I had just finished the DuPont scene in the other room, so it was time to just kind of continue along this way. So I began to use my preferred pieces of green floral foam to start to rough in the scene and try to picture how it was going to be. And I had no trouble with this immediate area, but looking at this area back here, I just kind of scratched my head for a while. So that's kind of my starting point. At this point, you can see we're farther along. The hillside itself is basically created. And in modern times, I make no effort to smooth out the joints between the foam pieces. I just paint it, hit it with some real dirt, and it becomes the vehicle for planting all of my trees. Because it's floral foam, you can plant the super trees in it without any difficulty. So this is the Duryea viaduct that I talked about. This is modeled to almost exact size, based on a lot of measurements that I took from Google Earth. It's a little bit inaccessible from on the prototype, but this is a very common structure that Lehigh Valley used for crossing other tracks, usually from other railroads at a skew. So it's an interesting piece of construction. I actually enjoyed the hell out of building that. That's kind of a lot of plastruct and micro engineering pieces in there.
That's a really cool looking bridge.
Yeah.
And I also used, I think, Central Valley ties here on the bridge itself. Was the first time I had done that. So you can see down below the Taylor Secondary how it comes underneath. And I had to do some serious grade work here in order to bring all of this about, because this Conrail track had to be sufficiently high to cross this Conrail track here. But you can see it dips. Dips in order to get under the D&H at DuPont. So I mean, there's definitely some undulations there. This turnout here is Duryea Junction, and you come off the Conrail main line and you head either here into Avoca Yard, and that's all P&E stuff, or you can go straight on this track, and that gets you to the Kerr-McGee future Superfund site. It's really a creosote tie plant.
Superfund. That's I actually used that term today in talking about my neighbor's house.
Oh my goodness!
But Mike, can we go back just a second?
Sure.
I apologize. There's a couple of questions from the chat I wanted to make sure that we got in here. So the first one's from
where do I get my floral foam? I saw that out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
A lot of my initial floral foam I bought on sale at E.C. Moore before they went out of business. But they would always have coupons, and you could buy it at half price. So it was maybe $7 a piece. And I would sometimes get friends to come with me. I would get my wife to come with me, and they'd each be standing there in line, with their little coupon buying foam on sale. Not the most practical way of doing it, but I really didn't have any other way at that time. Eventually, I became such a bulk user of foam that I opened an account with a floral supplier in a nearby city. And it turns out I'm able to buy the foam there at a very good price, like less than from on sale at AC Moore or Michael's. And their customer service is stunningly good. It's like I enjoy going there. It's a wonderful place to do business with. So I buy it in bulk. Usually it's a big box of it. Although I suppose I could walk in there and buy one piece, but what's the point?
Does it come like in a 2 foot by 4 foot sheet, or is it just random sizes, or how does it come?
It's 1 by 3.
Oh, 1 by 3.
Yep. So I think it's the way I buy it, I think it's probably less. So this is basically styrofoam, open cell foam that's green, which makes it much easier to color and cover. Standard building foam, which you're going to see later in this presentation, is closed cell and has its applications, but it's much harder to plant trees in. You have to basically make a hole in it to plant a tree.
So I have some handy here, but yeah, this is what he's talking about. So you can see the porous structure, this open cell, versus like the pink for the blue foam. That's that closed cell, and you can see how it's easily shaped, right? So
you can see how many trees that you're using on a hillside.
Yeah.
So if you had to make a hole, I mean, I'm above the 4,500 tree mark at this point in terms of building trees and installing. So if you had to make 4,500 holes with a tool to plant the trees, it would get tedious. I think so. By using this stuff, you just stick it in the foam, and then if it's not in the right place, you just pull it out and stick it in a slightly different place. It's just easy to work with. I mean, you're basically doing what it was designed for.
And,
right.
And you can still use like a hot wire cutter to form it and everything else like that.
I wouldn't. The hot wire cutters are better on open cell foam. I use standard woodworking tools for cutting this foam. One of my favorite, believe it or not, is a reciprocating saw, a coarse reciprocating saw blade, like a Sawzall blade, held with a pair of smaller vice grips. And I can cut whatever I want with that. And my new favorite tool for final shaping is a refill replacement blade for a Surform plane. And I just use the blade, and in a minute I can contour something the way I want. It makes a lot of particles, but it also cleans up very easy. So you always have the shop vac handy, and I cut as much of it and shape as much of it in the workshop. Curved pieces I'll cut on my bandsaw. If I'm cutting long strips of it, I'll run it through the table saw. I mean, I just use all standard woodworking tools on it. And sometimes I'll just use like a linoleum knife, one of those kind of hooked, curved.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
All kinds of things work with it. It's very, very versatile.
Yeah.
You can also see I use different thicknesses. So up on the hillside here, I've got a 3-inch thick piece. These are all 2-inch. Here's a 1-inch piece because it just happened to work. So it's nice to have different thicknesses of it. In terms of taking rock molds, I saw that out of the corner of my eye.
Yes.
I don't use plaster rock molds, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work on this foam. I would apply it before adding paint and dirt. I tend to use cripple bush rock castings, which I think are really, really nice. And I can get much bigger ones, and I can bond it to the foam with my standard construction adhesive that I like to use. My preferred bonding agent for this foam is DAP heavy duty Max. It's very hard to find, but it's worth it. And I buy it by the case.
So just to get to Otter Creek's question here. So these are plaster rock molds behind me here. I use the green foam, the florist foam as well for my terrain. And they take the rock molds pretty well.
If I'm not mistaken, Andy, that looks like a Confalone green fascia you've got there.
It is. It is. Yep. It is a nice hunter green type fascia. So
you'll see that eventually here.
let's get back to Mike here and his progress here.
So in our next photo, you can see the trees are starting to creep down the mountain here. You can see that I've drawn in Main Street, which is coming off of the plywood here. Basically, I'm taking this picture. I think I'm like on Pittston Junction, or maybe standing right behind it. So you can see how this track descends here, the Taylor Secondary. And there's a couple of houses here. So it's clear that any of the houses that are going to be all along this road, from the point of this wall backwards here, it's going to have to be a photo backdrop. That's the one that Mike Confalone just finished producing for me. So I'll be sending that off to be printed, and then that will allow me to continue to complete the Pittston Junction area. I like to go from the wall out. So that's what's going on here. And that's the aisle view of the same scene. So I do a lot of either putting actual buildings in place or even using cardboard mock-ups, because I'm just trying to get it in my head so that I can build it. Once I can see it, then I know I can build it. I'm also, I guess, in the process of building some fascia along in here too. You can see there's these bar clamps that are holding it in place while the adhesive sets.
So what are we looking at in terms of the dimensions here on the space that you're trying to fill? So it looks like the how deep from the front of the fascia to the back of the backdrop is where what you have to fill here?
From right here
by the bar clamp,
yeah, to this corner has got to be 10 feet.
Holy cow!
Oh my gosh! Okay.
So you can see that you're not working on it from the aisle, first of all, and that's something to keep in mind. So you see the pad down here?
Yep.
I did the dirty crawl under there about 1,000 times, going back and forth.
Oh my gosh, that keeps you fit though. That's for sure.
Just hurts.
It's just pain now.
Just pain. So there's a little more of a close-up. So there's the curved linoleum knife that I was talking about earlier.
There you go.
The level here is to give me some sense of my grade, because even this foam is not. So let's see if I can explain what's going on here. On the prototype, this track is more or less level in this area, and it's very close to street level, which is more or less level. And the Conrail Lehigh line is going up. On the model, I'm forcing some perspective on that, because this is relatively flat, as is this, and this is going down. So I don't know if that sounds like word salad, but basically I'm kind of doing the opposite of the way it is on the prototype. It's just what I had to do to make it work. Modeler's
license, right? I think that's what we always say, right?
Yeah, if somebody wants to come out here and start checking the grades, I'll just say, well, you're in the wrong place. And sometimes we break out the big level. But what you also see in the rear is a big piece of closed cell foam. This is half-inch green foam that I can get at Lowe's.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do at this point is get it to fit that spot. So it wasn't the easiest thing to figure out what the exact dimensions of it needed to be, because it also needed to raise up. If it was simply flat, it would have been one dimension. You measure it this 3 sides and you cut it. But I was trying to see, obviously this is way higher than it's going to be, but I was trying to get a feel for how it was going to look as a hillside backdrop to the spot. Now, if you look down below here, see the printed picture?
Yes.
That is from Google Earth.
Okay.
And you see this little red roof here? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Duria Auto Parts, and this is their junkyard.
Holy cow.
So I decided to fill this space just the way it was on the prototype, with an automotive junkyard. You can see that the road now is drawn in here in curves. See it taking the bend?
Yep.
And that road has to go down and somehow disappear. So all of these are scenic problems to solve. So now I'm looking at it at this angle, and I'm thinking, that's about right in terms of the hillside elevation that I'm looking for. You can see it's just kind of like a gentle curve going up. And again, I'm trying to do it to maintain the feel of what I have seen both in person, just standing there, and also in the prototype pictures that you can get off of Google Maps and Google Earth. You can see that I'm always drawing in here. So you see these little marks are the house locations, and I'm planning on doing some trees in this area. Here's the scrapyard in here, and where that building is going to go, and this will be a paved road. The other thing about this section is the ceiling slopes down here too. So it's a really weird spot. So here, this is how wide I like to make my roads, and I'm using it to help me draw the lines. Here you're seeing I'm using yet another kind of a saw to cut the foam. Sharpies everywhere. There's my caulking gun for the adhesives. I use these little weights to weight things down to get them to do what I want while I'm picturing things. A lot of put it in place, crawl back out, look at it, scratch my chin, go, and then, go back underneath and do something else. So great deal of that kind of stuff goes into this. At this point, I've done the dirty crawl, and I'm looking back out from that corner. So it's really the opposite perspective. And what you're seeing over on this side, this is a very revealing photo. So this is the outside door coming in from the driveway. This is the partition, on the other side of which is Pittston Yard. This is the partition on the other side of which is Taylor Yard. And this area here is the future Kaiser Valley Industrial Park.
Ooh.
So this is a really early photo. Everything is different here now.
Yeah. So
just a little different perspective. So you can see that I'm trying to figure out, how am I going to build this road? I need to do something here where I can actually work on the road, but I need to be here to do it. But then how do I do that if this is in place? So I'm coming up with a concept of, I think I have to make this not in place and then bring it here and put it there. And that's what I ended up doing. Any questions about this one before I move on?
Yeah, I was gonna mumble something out here. So going back to your process, right? So it looks like you do a lot of the rough planning out, and then you say you kind of hem and haw over it and place things around. How, like, before you, or should I say, do you ever like set the requirements in stone and then just go to work, or is it a constant state of flux? But kind of looking at things after you set it up, you start the process a little bit, and then you keep kind of evolving the plan as it goes, or are you
It's a lot more the second. I mean, obviously, you have to have a plan of attack, something to aim for or at. But you've got to be flexible, because as you get into any kind of I'm a project manager by trade.
Sure.
I don't care what the project is. If you try to plan it out like the D-Day invasion and think you're not going to have any deviation on that project, you're just mistaken.
Exactly.
Things, no matter how much planning, things are going to come up, even opportunities that you hadn't previously thought of that you want to take advantage of. So this is a real iterative approach for this particular scene because it's such a weird place.
Mm-hmm.
And usually, we're used to working in arm's depth scenes for the most part on modern railroads. It's rare that you have the opportunity to do a full depth scene like this. So I was inventing a lot of things as I go along on this one.
It's amazing.
The thing that everybody's, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this before, but it's blatantly obvious if anybody hasn't picked up on it yet. But this is just a scenery element. That's all that this is, right, Mike? It's just a scenery element, just to fill that space. And so we're not even talking track work or anything else like that. We're talking basic, scenic perspective stuff, right?
Correct. You can see in this shot how that ceiling kind of slopes down here.
Yeah.
Because the addition was a very unusual construction to the Dirty Crawl.
Producer just loves that.
It's going to be a T-shirt, I think.
Yeah, the Dirty Crawl is going to be
Dirty
a T-shirt.
Crawl.
It certainly should be. So from this perspective, you can see that the Sayre staging yard is a curved yard and comes all the way down. So that's how you get your roughly 20 feet of track space there. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see the relationships now between all of this stuff, right? This track here is heading down and loops around and goes into D&H staging behind here. And this is the track that comes into the Kaiser Valley. And this is where the coal truck dump is, and the plastic facility that I just built is in this area. You may have recognized some of these things from seeing them in recent postings on the podcast group.
Yes.
But I'm looking at this now, not only from standing close to it, but also standing farther back, just to make sure that it's just hitting me right. And I think I may have ended up adjusting this curve a little bit down. It looks a little bit high as compared to how I ended up building it.
Wow.
So at this point now, I've realized that I can cut this closed cell foam, and the road is going to be built on a removable piece that has not been installed here yet. When I say removable, I mean it'll stay. This is removable, but right now it's something that I'm building with some rabbets so it can fit into these spots and not just fall through. And there's the rabbet that I cut, which will accommodate.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, that'll accommodate the closed cell removable piece of foam. So you can see how the road is kind of drawn in here. It's just temporarily clamped in place.
Wow.
So there's the piece now, filling all of that in. So you notice that there's an opening back here. That's deliberate. There is a heat radiator underneath, and I wanted to be able to let heat, coming up and out of that space, but also just kind of have access back there, because I figured that I would basically screen all of that out with a tree line, but you'll see. So I decided on these three houses, and these were all built by Rich Cobb to specific prototypes from the area. And here, I'm starting to add some foam along the back edge of that removable piece, because this is where I'll be inserting some trees. So I'm using my Dynagrip Max and some weights just to hold it in. In 10 minutes, that'll be good to go.
Yeah. Question from the group here says, Mike, have you ever built scenery at the workbench on this foam and then dropped it into place?
That is precisely what we're about to show you here.
Oh, man, foreshadowing. Here we go.
This is going to be awesome.
He's not fooling me. He read the article.
Yeah.
So what I did over on the right here was I just built a little plywood shelf out of some leftover layout scraps, and that's what's going to hold up the back, or I guess one side of the closed cell foam. And then I used some camo olive green to do some dithering along the wall, which is what I prefer to do behind rows of trees, so you're not just seeing, bright blue.
Yeah.
And that works great, actually. Here I'm doing some actual planning on the foam piece. I'm trying to figure out where the dirt roads need to be, what relationships of the cars and the shrubs to one another. And again, this kind of planning just helps me to picture it in my own mind and then build it. So try it in place. You can see that there's the piece that we just glued. I tried a tree in place. Yup, the dither's at the right height. Basically just seat of the pants, but I been doing it enough that I kind of guessed right. And trying to see, I've drawn in the dimensions of the building, some junk cars, and just trying to again get a sense of how the scene is going to evolve.
Sure.
There's the opposite angle view of that.
No, with those cars, Mike, you didn't use any forced perspective or anything like that, where you used like smaller cars towards the back and making them bigger and coming towards the front.
I didn't think there was a sufficient disparity front to back to justify going to N scale. So there really wasn't much to choose from in terms of a somewhat smaller than HO scale for that. So,
right.
Short answer, no. Here's a picture of the actual building. This is Doria Auto Parts. In fact, you can kind of see the sign a little bit right here. This is from Google Maps. And what I'm trying to do, this looks like a podcast.
Oh, I'm just posting up Heath's comment there. Looks
Okay.
like a podcast. I'm going to need to go back and watch.
Oh yeah, you're definitely going to want to see the pictures. That's kind of the point. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to begin kit bashing what is going to be the structure itself, basically using stuff from the scrap box.
Really? What was
Windows.
that? Okay.
So what I did was, if you look, I'm going to go back a couple. So I looked at the windows. You see how they're sort of greened out with reddish panes. So that's basically what I'm trying to replicate here.
Oh.
And I just kind of dry brush some zinc chromate primer to get that reddish mullion effect. So here the building is starting to take shape. This is from some Walther's something or other that's heavily modified.
Ye old brick building.
Yeah, you can see how this piece is different from that piece, which is different from that piece. This is probably just brick sheet, and there's some this
I love it.
ABS in here. So again, it's all out of what's on hand. But again, I'm trying to create the feel of the prototype. So with a coat of paint, you got to try it in place, and it's starting to look right. Looks a little better with the windows and the metal roofing in place.
Wow, that's really close to the prototype, if not spot on.
It's pretty close. I mean, I have 3 windows in my doors instead of 2. I'm not going to worry about that.
No, this is really good.
There's a big girder assembly behind the building that was probably the skeleton of either a building they were going to build or a building that the sheathing, got blown off of it, or who knows?
Right.
And I just fabricated that right out of just on-hand Plastruct and evergreen parts, just using a lot of girders. I like using these magnet boards and 1, 2, 3 blocks because it enables you to work quickly and get it nice and square.
Mike, I got a quick question for you about the 1, 2, 3 blocks.
Yep.
Where did you pick yours up at?
Amazon.
There you go.
So now it's really starting to take shape. These are the legs. So in other words, this is the roof that's flat down on the plate. And there's the finished product.
There you go.
Almost finished. You'll see. But that's where it goes. What is this? Do you remember what the prototype looked like?
No, I don't.
I do.
I don't.
I do because I read the article. There you go.
The prototype, it holds the car. On the prototype, it's a Nash Rambler, but I couldn't find one. Although
cool.
one of my editors from the magazine sent me some links to 3D printed Shapeways versions of it. So the bug is going to get swapped out at some point, I think.
That's really cool.
But in this blurry photo, you can see the girder assembly, and there's the Nash Rambler up there. See it?
Yep.
So there we go.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So here, I'm really starting to, you can see how there's a lot of crossed out lines because I kind of changed the orientation of this stuff. But now we're starting to really start to plan this out in earnest. And I'm checking my levels. So you can see that this foam is not level, but the sights for the houses needed to be, because houses on a hillside are never crooked. So I have to level out these spots for the houses by carving into the foam. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So basically, would you hit it with the sure form plane?
Yeah, something like that. Actually, sometimes when it's not much, I just turn on the shop vac and use the nozzle to scrape it, and it just goes right into the tube, so it's not messy that way.
Where did you get that level from? I've never seen one like that before.
You know, that's a good question. It's probably in my dad's toolbox.
Right?
Might have been my grandfather's. You never know. So now the girders are painted, and again, constantly trying stuff in place, trying different angles, making sure it looks right to me, making any minor corrections that need to be made before I take the closed cell piece of foam into the workshop and getting ready to actually build the junkyard scene. So I put down tarps over my table saw. It's the biggest flat area I have left because most of the basement is filled with layout you can't really work on anymore. So the workshop really came in handy for this.
Yeah.
And now I'm adding some more scraps of green foam to represent the slightly elevated areas. This is still going to be like the rear junkyard back here. And the weights are just holding it down while the glue sets. Paint and dirt, it's your friend. Very, very easy. And very, very quick. And when you put a fan on it, it dries fast. There's the houses in their leveled spots. Not even sure what this is a picture of. Getting back to this, as you can see here now, I've just put down some static grass in the appropriate areas. That always makes a scene begin to come to life.
Yeah.
And the roads are also been put in. I use a custom grout mixture that Mike Confalone mixed up for me. He mixed a big tub of it up for me that I thought would last me several lifetimes, and I've almost used it all up.
Oh my gosh.
It's just great for roads. I think he used 4 different colors of grout to mix it.
Yeah, I love using grout for.
It's just the right stuff.
Yeah, it's just the right.
And you just put it down, roll it, and mist it with isopropyl, and it dries hard. Couldn't be easier. That's what I was doing right before the show. You'll see the pictures later on Crew Call.
Awesome.
Now we're starting to try some cars in place, and I decided very early that everything that went onto this module had to be bonded in place, and I'm really glad I did that because it's so big that with everything on it, it wouldn't fit through a doorway. So I had to be able to basically stand it up. So if I hadn't bonded everything in place, everything would have just fallen off like the cars. So here now I'm starting to add a lot more shrubbery material between the cars.
Yep.
Adding
that looks really
more
cool.
Trees in the back.
Yeah, this is really starting.
That looks really cool.
Just how it started from a piece of foam.
Right.
It's amazing.
More shrubbery, more grasses of different lengths.
And at this point, is it still relatively lightweight?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You need a lot of trees when you're doing my area of Pennsylvania. So this is just me making trees and making shrubbery. Used to be a wood shop, but right now it's a scenery production area.
Can I ask a couple questions here,
Sure.
Mike? So when you go, do you make trees just for the scene, or do you make, a few extras if you're in the mood, or because it seems like you're the master of the super tree, and because you have thousands of them on your layout, like how do
north of 4,500? It seems like a lot.
Yeah.
Like a box like this here, this is about 60 trees.
Wow.
But you can see the box isn't huge. So that's how many trees it takes to cover that number of square inches. It could be a little demoralizing at times. So the answer to that is yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
Sometimes I make trees for a scene because I know I'm going to need them. Sometimes I'm making trees to have because I want to have them when I'm ready to use them. But there's also a limit to how many trees you can build fully in advance because they take up a lot of room. And how do you store them? They are super trees.
Yep.
So what I try to have going into the winter is a lot of painted armatures, picked and painted, because I like to paint them outside. And then that way I can make them inside all winter. So I've got about 140 something painted armatures in stock right now. It's not really enough. I need to do one more picking and painting session before the weather really closes in. Any other tree questions while I'm here?
Yeah. So those are they all super trees, or do you have a super secret method with cheap materials? So
I wish. No, they're all super trees.
Okay. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly, or I guess how efficiently you put together a box of super trees, because that's the one thing. I'm doing a northern, Wisconsin, upper Michigan. It's going to be trees. It's going to be trees everywhere, and I'm trying to figure out how do I mass produce trees at the level of realism like you have them here.
We can talk about that a little bit, and in fact, there's one picture I'd like to show you if I can find it at the end of this. That's not in the article, so I'll just have to poke around a little bit. But
sure,
it's a picture that shows like the depth of the forest and in a big section of the layout, and I think it'll convey the scope and scale of it. So here's the junkyard, pretty well fleshed out here.
That looks really good.
I like that.
The big trees in back are going to go up against the dithering on the wall, and I think at this point the cars have been dull coated, so they don't so they don't look too shiny. These were just cheap little resin cast cars that I just took a Sharpie and blackened out the windshields on them.
Yeah.
I don't remember the brand, but they were, I needed so many that I just bought a couple dozen of them.
Yeah. I love that you have cars behind that row of overgrown trees.
In back here.
Yeah, I just absolutely love that.
Those are the Hulks.
Yeah.
So here's that mountain that we saw under construction.
Yeah.
Pretty much fully treed in now, which makes an enormous difference.
That's amazing.
And it shows you the juxtaposition of this mountain and the viaduct to the junkyard scene.
Okay. Jeez.
Wow.
Wow.
And again, you can see there's the prototype building, the reddish colored roof.
Yep.
Now it's time to build a road before you put the junkyard in place.
Yeah.
You ever notice you see the caulking gun hanging everywhere, like in almost every picture?
Can I ask a question about that? Did you lose it a lot? You hang it in a spot and then you have to spend minutes, hours looking for it, like I do with my cordless drill or something like that.
I believe in defense and depth. So I usually have 3 going at any given time.
There you go. Okay.
So there's one in here because once you did the dirty crawl to get under there, you don't want to have to do the dirty crawl back to go get the gun. So that one kind of stayed there, and there's another one in the aisle, and another one probably lost someplace.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm using just strip wood here, tacked in place with some side pox as the forms for the road.
Yep.
And that's the curve and everything all in place. So really, I'm ready to start paving here, I think. And you can see the lightweight. See the lightweight spackle here.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking, Andy. The road is it's like almost a mile long.
Unbelievable.
So it's got to kind of be mixed and paved in one swell foop here.
Yeah.
So there it is. So I use
that dap stuff.
I use lightweight spackle and I use powdered paint pigments and just mix well.
Okay.
And it goes in very easy, and if you have the right width putty knife, it's pretty easy to get it the way you want. I usually do one full coat, let it dry overnight, and then I will go back and smooth out any bumps, and then take a little more and just fill in any potholes that don't look realistic. But it's pretty spaceforward. And
you pre-color that DAP spackling.
Oh yeah. That's what the powdered pigments are for. So it's the same color all the way through.
That's really good.
You don't have to worry about chipping it.
Chipping, right? Yeah, exactly.
I used to do roads out of plaster. That was a nightmare.
Ugh.
So now the road has been boundaried with some of that same grout type material along the edges. All of this is now all dirted in place all the way down into here.
Oh my gosh!
And the driveways for the houses are in place.
Come on.
Makes sense to do it while you're doing the road.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And there's the houses in place.
Unbelievable.
I think we're ready for junkyard. Note that at the end here, I've got a little picture because the road has to look like it's going someplace.
Yeah.
I tried printing a picture from Google Maps and stuck it there, and I thought, it's kind of the right idea, but it doesn't look right. So I continue to scratch my head a little bit on that.
Oh,
freshly cut lawns.
Very, very nice manicured there.
Yeah.
Must be a high dollar HOA.
Yeah, right.
So you can see now this has a lot of weathering in place because it's supposed to look a little grimy and gritty.
Yep.
And that's a very out of focus photo of what the road needs to do. See, it's even got a car on it.
Yeah, right.
But it's not exactly right, but you can see how you need something there. You can't just die out in a wall, right?
Yeah, right.
So now I did some striping of the roads, which was just a pain in the neck.
Ugh.
Nothing fun about that. I used automotive pinstriping. So you notice the road right now looks shiny. I found that it worked best when I put the shiny acrylic down and let it dry, put the pinstriping down, and then shiny acrylic over it, and then a couple coats of dull coat from a rattle can.
Yeah. There you go.
Now, if you look in the distance, looks like the road just keeps going because I decided to try a mirror there, and it worked.
Hey, that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, that idea has been around a long time, but you really have to have the right situation for it. You got to make sure, for example, you never see yourself in the mirror, which kind of destroys the illusion. So the angle of it, is critical.
Yeah.
Here's Pittston Junction, which I was kind of working down and towards. So you can see the road now is paved all the way down into the corner. The confluent backdrop is going to go all along here and into this curve and kind of die out in this area behind some trees. So this is going to be all houses taken of actual Pittston Junction houses.
That's the same road.
Yes.
Oh,
Wow. Come on. So how
Oh.
long is that road end to
yeah.
end?
I'm going
End
to
to
go back a little bit here, and then I'll zoom ahead again.
20 feet?
So you see the plywood here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corner of the thing. So the photo backdrop starts right here, and it's 12 feet long
Wow.
to the right. So it's
Oh, man.
probably, it's probably a good 8 feet or maybe more, from this point going to the left. So it's a long road.
That is a
Wow.
long road.
Wow.
So where was I?
It's one thing to
Oh,
put
yeah.
a stretch of main line down 20 feet. It's another thing to do
Do a road.
a road.
Yeah, there's a reason this part doesn't have the stripes yet. But you see how the road is sort of in place here. This is where the Pittston Junction Yard office will be.
Cool.
There'll be a little gate here. This is how they entered from Main Street. This is the Taylor Secondary, which is a track that Conrail put in to connect from Pittston Yard going down the Taylor Secondary. This used to be the EL main, but this is a functional and working Y, which I always wanted and never had. So this photo, I guess I took this from a step stool or something.
Oh my God.
But you can see how the road with the stripes the stripes end about here. There's the road going off that we just looked through down at the Pittston Junction over here. Here's all the houses that I took out. Here's the module planked down in place. So basically, I had to turn it up on its edge, get it through the doorways, and then pick it up over my head to get it over all of the, the scenic dividers. And I planked it down on here. And then I did the dirty crawl.
There we go.
And planked it in place. And only then, when you do the dirty crawl back out and look at it, do you decide, did it work?
Yeah, right.
So it's not done, obviously, because you need trees along in here, and you need to do something about this. I think I ended up bluing some of this and then adding another section with some higher trees eventually. But the basic concept kind of worked.
Now,
Look at it from a distance? This is my favorite view because you can see the road going way under the bridge, and you can kind of see the whole place. Obviously, I need a trim piece in here, and I haven't filled in any of the grooves or anything. But there's the basic scene.
Amazing.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Very unusual scene for me. I've never built anything like this with any, and it's rare that you get this kind of depth on a model railroad. So it was definitely worth doing.
That is amazing.
The alternative would have been to just like round off the corner behind it and do your standard backdrop. And I thought, no, I want to make use of this space.
Well, the thing is, though, too, Mike, is a lot of times model railroaders will say, well, I got this big space. I got to put track in there somehow.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And in reality, you really don't.
Well, you don't want to create an area that you have to do the dirty crawl every time you want to switch it out, right?
Yeah, now there's a question for you. What about could you make this a different scene if you wanted to? Since that's removable, really.
Well, I'm a prototype modeler. I don't think the prototype's going to change. So this is the scene.
But could you make it if something happened? Like say you found out something happened with the scene, like near or during your era, that you needed to change something out. It just easily taken out and worked on and put back in place, right?
I would say, I guess you could. I probably wouldn't. Like the last thing I want to do is get this thing out of here. It's all kind of glued in place too.
Yeah.
So now I've added trees in here, shoved a couple more junk cars in there. Starting to look more like the prototype. No sign yet. And as you can see, I've taken care of the backdrop problem here. I put sky back in here and added some more tall trees.
I like that perspective right. That picture right there is
Yeah,
awesome.
that
Here's
was
the
good.
sign.
There you go.
That's cool.
This guy's got his Pacer parked in his driveway.
Did he get that from next door?
I doubt it.
So we got a couple of
I
questions.
still need to plant. I have since this picture, put enough stuff under here so this doesn't look like it's floating in the air.
Yeah, I love the floating buildings. So I got a handful of questions, a couple from the chat, a couple of my own, Mike.
All right.
So Ralph Franzetti said, with such a deep space, why didn't you choose to do forced perspective? I know we talked a little bit about that earlier, but was there some sort of reasoning that really, pushed you one way or the other?
Just wasn't my primary goal.
Yeah.
Like if my goal had been to make it look even deeper, then I might have approached it from that perspective. But what I was modeling really was the junkyard in its immediate behind.
Yeah.
And when you look at it in the aerial photos, what I was seeing and what I was going to model didn't look so distant that it required using forced perspective to bring it about.
Okay. So certainly
Camo green is a it's a Rust-Oleum. It's from their camo line. I use the camo brown to paint my track, and I use the camo black because it's a really flat, good spray black. I'll paint trees with either the brown or the black and use them interchangeably. The camo green is the same from the same series, just a spray can.
Yeah, rattle can. So then,
while you guys are asking questions, I'm going to see if I can find on another monitor that picture that I wanted to share.
Sure.
Let me just get this over here.
So
you don't see that now, right?
No, we don't.
All right. So ask away, and I'm just going to look for a picture.
Yeah. So the other pieces here. So obviously we have some filler cars in the background there, but I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the Pacer that's out there. Where did you get some of those automobile models?
I think many of the cars are fresh cherries. You remember that line of cars?
No, I don't.
I'm not really sure what era they were from. It might have been 80s or 90s.
Okay.
But they're pretty good HO metal diecast vehicles. You can probably find them on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't buy them, back in the day. So I got some used. My friend Ken McCory graciously donated X number of them to the cause. So, you just kind of accumulate them in various ways.
Yeah, very good. I just absolutely love this scene. I think that's one of the things that doesn't get focused on a lot is the non-track side or the rail served scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love how it just pulls it sucks up all that negative space, right?
Well, did you see the pictures that I posted on Crew Call of Neil Schofield's layout?
Yeah.
Like he's the master of that, right? I mean, he's modeling a particular or a specific area, right? Because he's full prototype modeling as well, and because of that, he's got pictures and he's doing it up, just like you see, and he's done a great job of it. So, what is prototype modeling, right? I mean, like Confalone is full proto freelance, which gives him a lot of freedom to use his own artistic sense to create a scene that looks right to him. So it's liberating, but also limiting because he's got nothing to go by except his own artist's eye. So everything has pros and cons. For the prototype modeler, it's the exact opposite problem. You've got a prototype scene. You're trying to create the flavor of it. And you don't have room to build it because you never do.
Right.
So you've got to find a way to selectively compress it and still convey the feel of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On the other hand, because it's prototype modeling and you have that constraint, it gives you guidelines. It gives you parameters that you're operating between, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
rather than having to have it just be completely wide open, you want to capture this element, you want to capture that element, and that seems to work for me, as opposed, because I used to be a proto freelance guy, and I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but when I finally found my prototype and decided that's what I wanted to do, for me, I just started to enjoy it a lot more, and I started to be able to picture it in my head, even though I was basically operating within the constraints of the prototype. I mean, does that make any sense?
I think so. I think so.
When I got done with that, I thought that sounded like gobbledygook.
Yeah, I think I'll be 100% honest with you there. It sounded pretty good.
I guess what I'm saying is, if you're prototype modeling, if you're doing it completely freelance, it's all on you.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're really good at it, like Confalone is, then it comes out really good. But sometimes it's the hardest thing to do because you're creating 100% of it with nothing to go by. Whereas if you're a prototype modeler, you know what you're aiming for. So you're recreating something that you've either seen or are looking at a picture of.
I love
Hopefully
that.
that makes a little more sense.
Sign looks really good too.
Yeah, that sign's awesome.
I love it.
I'm still going through pictures here. If you can indulge me another minute or two.
Absolutely. So I think what I'd like to do at this time here is bring up the Mike Rose's Crew Call podcast, Crew Call with Mike Rose. He has a Facebook group out there as well, where he posts a lot of his progress shots. I know that I'm a member of that group, and he was always posting just fantastic photos of the modeling that he's doing out there. Plus, the podcast that he has is also out there as well. So it's a good community as well, and certainly should check it out. I do want to give the while we're doing some I guess rummaging for some more pictures here in the I do want to bring up just a fact from the chat. A lot of great questions tonight. So if there's anything that pops out in your head, I think there was a question back in a while ago from Dodo One Ops that said, "What color do you paint your fascia? Do you color yours black, Mike?"
Confalone green.
Confalone green. There you go.
I heard you mention that. I heard you mention that before.
The reason I call it that is it's a color that Mike Confalone came up with, a custom mix, and I looked at it and thought, yeah, I like that. Give me a hunk. So
yeah,
and then I took a hunk down at Home Depot and had him color match it, and that's what I'm using.
Yeah, I like that dark green as well myself.
There's so many greens, you know what I mean? But there was something about this one that just kind of worked with my color scheme, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So and then there's a question here from N-Scale Shenanigans, who had to step out briefly. What do you use for your roads?
And that's the lightweight spackle mixed with powdered paint pigments.
Yeah. And so that's it's a product by DAP. You can find it pretty much in any home building outlet, Ace Hardware, wherever. And it's you mix it up with that I'm going to start mixing it up now. This is a tip that I'm taking away from tonight's podcast is mix it up with some pigments before I go laying it down so I don't have the bright white chips that come out. And I have to take.
And a piece of advice on that,
Yeah.
Go easy, because you can always darken it, but it's really hard to lighten it if you put too much. And chances are you're going to want a lighter color than you think. Asphalt paving tends to fade quickly.
I noticed that with the roads that you did, it was almost like a concrete type of gray, and then you must have came over the top of it with some paint to darken it up. Then
on which section?
Be just like the right in front of us here that we have. It looks like the pavement's pretty dark there.
I think a lot of that has to do with part of it's the lighting, part of it's the coatings. When you first put it down, it tends to be a little bit lighter, and then it kind of darkens.
Sure.
I'm going to drag a picture over here just to promise not my buddy Dave will kill me. But you see the depth of the trees in this scene?
Yes.
So there's the other side of that opening. There's the DuPont Bridge. This is the track coming into Avoca Yard. This is the tie treatment plant, and all of this is trees. So you get this effect out of it. There's that DuPont Road Bridge again. This is the Taylor Secondary coming up through trees. To the left of it is the Lackawanna River, and you can't even see it. So the trees are separating the track from the river from Avoca Yard, and that's exactly the way it is on the prototype.
Andy, you better get going on making trees.
Yes.
You have to make a friend of making trees. You just have to get your mind right and decide that, his Pocono Northeast doing interchange at Taylor.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
This is Avoca Yard. This is their yard on a hot summer day.
Like you go back to that what is that single shot of the Conrail coming through that grove of trees there.
Yep.
And it just that picture, there's an iconic picture on the Chicago Northwestern on the ore lines, the M35 bridge, right? Where you have they're coming out of Empire Mine, heading back towards Escanaba, and there's that cut of just the locomotive and the train coming through the trees. That reminded me of that type of scene to catch. That's really cool, Mike, how you did that.
That was another scene that kind of, I don't want to say that I knew it had to be that deep, and I knew that I was constrained to the dimensions of that opening because everything that kind of came through there, which was Taylor Secondary, Conrail Main Line, and the scenery that would support all of that all had to be created in that particular area. So I had to build all of that to completion, which is not really my style, in order to build the rest of the layout in front of it, if that makes sense. Here's your
there it is.
Yeah, boy, there you go. The old Quasimodo locomotive.
Yep, and this is the Conrail local backing some untreated ties into the Kerr-McGee plant at Duryea Junction. You can see the Taylor Secondary down in the bottom here.
Oh, cool.
You never know what you're going to get on local power.
I could sit here and stare at pictures of your layout all night long. This is a cool shot too. Just a perspective of looking up the rails with trees on both sides.
Tracking the trees. I mean, that's what my modeling area looks like. You hang around in it enough and you get the feel for it.
Yeah. It's really incredible.
These are all photos taken during an op session. Here's an example of photo backdrop, right? This is one of the earlier photo backdrops that Conrail did for me. But it's what you need behind this mahogany plant. Otherwise, it just wouldn't work.
Okay.
And that's a
So-
deep seed.
So we got another question here from Otter Creek and Rio Grande saying, what do you use to fix the foliage to your super trees? Do you use spray adhesive, hairspray, something else?
So the procedure for the super trees is actually pretty straightforward. The armature gets selected. You know, you pick off what is junk. You pick off the stupid little leaves that are there, which is the worst part. You paint it. I use either flat black or camouflage brown, some dark color.
Yep.
And you mix up a batch of matte medium. I forget whether it's 3 or 4 to 1. It's whatever it says on the bottle.
Yep.
And I usually use a tall pitcher, like a lemonade Tupperware pitcher or something. You dunk the tree, take it out, bring it over to bin number 1, sprinkle on some spring green, bring it over to bin number 2, sprinkle on some grass green, stick it in a box, in a hole in a box.
Yep.
Let it dry. And then later when it's dry, I mist it with Final Net unscented hairspray, which is a terrific spray glue, and sprinkle on some knock leaves or some Scenic Express. I think they call it super leaf foliage, which gives it, like if you look in this picture, you see some of this sort of lighter stuff on some of like this up in this corner here.
Yep.
Those are the knock leaves, like up in here too. You see it.
Yeah.
So it just gives it a little bit of, see if I can find a better picture of it. It's hard to tell in some of these shots. These are, like I said, these are all pics taken during an op session. You can see some down in here. These little lighter particles, which really kind of replicate trees, maybe the underside of them being blown in the wind or something. Just gives it a little more relief.
A little shade to it.
Yep. I wouldn't use some of the pictures that I posted from Neil's layout. I mean, he's got some foreground trees that he did a lot of work on each individual tree, and they looked stupendous. You know what I mean? But you could never do. I'm modeling forested hillsides here. I'm not modeling a tree. If I had to model a solo tree, I would have to really pick and choose the particular super tree armature that I would use for that, or because you're going to see more of it, or use something different as the armature. But really, it's a matter of each of the 2 colors of ground foam. I mix coarse and fine.
Okay.
And there's no formula to it. I just, and I use plastic shoe boxes for each of the foam colors. I let it dry, and in between tree making sessions, and really that's it. It's just a matter of repeating it 10 million times. And the making of the trees is the easiest part. The picking of the armature is the hardest part.
That is the one downfall of the super tree, cleaning up those armatures. That's it's an unfortunate event.
And they have gotten expensive. They've basically doubled in price.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yep. And have been in very short supply. I've had even the ground foam has been in short supply. Tom Johnson helped me out with some ground foam he didn't need from them, and Ken McCory saved my bacon with an incredible donation of, I think it was 2.5 cases, the super value cases of super trees, one of which he'd already picked. It was like a gift from the heavens. You know what I mean? It was really a very kind thing to give me, and helped me a lot in terms of making a big impact in a short period of time.
It's just I look at it and I'm going, I want this on my layout. This is the type of scenes that I want to portray as well. But I'd have to bring in a few more pine trees and some more birch trees.
Are an entirely different problem.
Yes, they are.
And the reason for that is there's no easy way to make a good pine tree. They're a lot of work.
No, that's true. And then the birch trees too that Split Rock was talking about is
You don't
going
think
to
you
be
could make a convincing birch tree with super trees just by
I don't
white barking it?
I don't know. They're pretty straight. I mean, don't they? They come up in big little stands together, don't they? Andy?
You'd have to
Yeah.
be selective in your in the armature that you use. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's there's going to have to be a lot of teasing. There it is.
This is a different spot, believe it or
That's
not.
another one.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So it's like that all over the place here because it needs to be, you know.
That's amazing.
This is DuPont Junction heading up the ramp. Now that's a relatively shallow scene.
Wow.
That's a Conrail train waiting to get into Pittston.
This
The
is
coveted
amazing.
over-under shot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Wasn't that uncommon? We've probably talked about this before, but what's cool about this scene is that this is a road bridge over a rail bridge, over a rail bridge, over a stream. Not something you see every day. And this bridge on this track is longitudinal. So the stream goes around the abutment and down like this, and this whole track, the whole length of that is on this bridge like this.
Oh my gosh. So basically the rails go over the stream for a significant part of time.
Several car lengths, you know.
Yeah.
My buddy Tony V, who was a Reading and Northern engineer, brought us down there to see this. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I have to model this. This is a signature scene. And I think the most fun I had on the whole thing was the Green Bridge.
Huh.
Just had a ball building that thing.
That's fantastic.
This is a little taste for Justin because he likes DuPont.
Yeah, right. He asked about it earlier in the show.
Right.
That's for sure. Excellent. So I think this is, Mike, I just want to first of all thank you for taking us through again your process and you know, answering all the questions that come up. I know I appreciate it, and I can certainly say that the folks in the chat tonight do as well. I do want to just give the final call for questions for Mike. I know there's been some questions about how do you choose the color for your trees, being, you know, some people do summer or a fall, you know, where are you at in terms of that
so I'm modeling you know, like late June, early July, so everything's, you know, pretty lush.
Green. Yeah.
You know, maybe
Lush
just starting to get a little crispy in the grass, but you know, full leaf. How do I choose the colors? You know, bought several colors and tried trees with different shades and settled pretty early on the spring green, grass green color combo.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's very, it just, when you look at it, you see the lushness, you see this is a, you know, a forest in June, you know, it really looks convincing.
By rights, it could easily be a lot weedier.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that's the other point I wanted to make, was that I had decided quite a while ago that my goal was going to be to get as much of the layout presentable as possible, and kind of went on a bare plywood eradication project. And I found that the more finished scenery I had, the more I enjoyed operating on the layout. And that doesn't mean that any of these scenes are finished by any stretch of the imagination. And my wife wonders, are you going to run out of things to do in the layout? And I just say, not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
There's always something to do, right?
Right. There's always something fun to do in model railroading, which is why I like the hobby. It includes carpentry, wiring, artistry in the scenery, model building. I mean, it's got so many facets. I don't know many hobbies that would encompass that, so it kind of worked for me in that regard.
Yeah. So it just there's just a couple other questions. It says that it appears that all the trees are one color, and that there's a variation there. Is this due to the reference photos, and just the lighting, or is it all like a single green? I know that it's been asked a handful of times.
Well, so I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but I think what they mean is I'm saying that I'm making all my trees with basically two colors of foam.
Yeah.
But when you look at the hillsides, they don't look monotonous.
Yeah.
So I get that natural variation because I'm basically using two colors of foam in two grades of fine and coarse.
Yeah.
And nothing gets measured. So no two tubs of it are the same. I just throw foam in there and mix it up, so it's just like natural variation by virtue.
Random. Yeah, right.
Life expectancy of floral foam, unknown. I think it's going to be fine for my lifetime, which is all I care about.
Yeah. I've had some stuff. I think 5-10 years. No, 5 to 7 years. I have had no problems with it, like bubbling or off gassing or shrinking.
I believe that the foam is going to be stable as long as you protect it from UV. UV will degrade it.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
That's true of any foam, by the way, not just floral foam. All the foams have that problem. That's why if it's used outside, it's always got stucco coating or something like that.
Tyvek house wrap on it, that type of stuff. So Fox River Rail fan asks when the short line of the show is. We're gonna, I think tonight, since we're running almost to the 2.5 hour mark, we're gonna postpone the short line of the show until next time and save Mike's voice too. I know he's not feeling so hot with us, so we'll hit that up.
Hopefully in 2 weeks I'll be feeling a little better the next time we do one.
Well, I didn't mean to hog the entire show there, but
I was very happy that you came on and went into the detail that you did. You don't have to worry about hogging the show whatsoever. We love it when the guest does all the work for us. So, but
as a fellow podcaster, I can relate.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but at any rate, Mike, I just wanted to, Mike Ostertag, any final comments or anything like that before we sign off for this evening? Do some final round.
Mike, do you see, once you get done like with the scene in the corner here and you move on to your next thing, and how often do you go back and revisit something and say, or see something like, say, a detail or something like that, or a way of, like a guardrail or something? How often do you go back and say, "Oh, I need to go back and do that on this road because that was here. I didn't realize that was here, or I didn't realize this was here." And how often do you end up doing that, or do you have a laundry list of stuff like that you have to go and do yet?
I do have a rough priority list, and I think my priority has been to, like I say, eradicate the bare plywood, and I've got this thing on the run now. I really do. So when I get my scenic backdrop in for Pittston Junction, I think Pittston Junction itself will get finished in short order.
Yeah.
And all that remains at that point is one more section that on leaving Pittston Junction off to the right, that's the Pocono Northeast. And it's a fairly narrow piece of bench work. So it's going to require a lot of, I don't know, I'm going to really pick the brains of my cohorts about the right way to do something there. And then the only other place left to build layout in is the former oil tank room. That's the one where it blasted through the foundation wall to get in there.
Yeah.
I had too much sweat into that hole to not utilize that space. And I think that is and that's the final piece of layout to actually build. So, to answer your question, I'm likely to move on to the P&E portion before I go back and start tweaking anything. But I'm probably likely to tweak things before I do the final construction in the former oil tank room. Because I don't need to build that. It's in its own little area. And but the P&E will now be the only undone section in the entire 1,800 square feet. So the motivation for that will be let's complete it.
Yeah.
And I do most of the work on my layout myself. I've certainly had buddies come over and help me with stuff. Everybody's better at doing static grass than I am. It's just it's probably my most frustrating thing to do, and I swear it's my gun. In fact, I borrowed Confalone's gun for like a year.
Oh, wow.
Because I just very reluctant to give it back. And I had better results with his than mine. And for reasons I can't really quantify it. Schofield and Jim Dufour also do stunning static grass work. But I think they also, one of the things they do is, and I've done some of this too, it does work. Once you've got it down, you go back the next day, hit it with some hairspray and do it again. And then if that's not enough, hit it with some hairspray and do it again. So they've built up by repeated application some really lush looking static grass. And that's an example of something where in certain areas where I think the grass is sort of, I can definitely improve upon that,
Yeah, and static grass is a mystic art in my opinion. It's something.
Some days are better than others. And
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Yeah. So okay, so what we went through tonight was just part one.
No, actually, I took you through the whole thing.
Ooh, so we got a sneak preview.
Wow.
I couldn't even tell where the break was, so I just kept going.
We even scooped the magazine.
Yeah, we scooped the magazine tonight. So, but I do want to give a final shout out to MRH and the article that you put in there. I know Mike and I both read it, and a lot of good. I mean, basically, it was everything we talked about tonight. But you should check it out because there's some just some other tidbits that may have been missed. But
the thing to keep in mind, I think, is that it's a column. You know what I mean? It appears, I guess, quarterly, something like that.
Yeah.
Basically, Joe tells me it's my turn, and I do an article. Maybe it's 3 times a year, but there's a theme. You know what I mean? And if you worked your way backwards, reading the columns, you'd really see the evolution. I think of maybe certain style and technique, and get something out of that too.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was gonna plug as well, is that the back issues, you can see how things have evolved on your layout, as well as just what you've posted on the crew call page that you run as well. It's awesome to see just the progress, and it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable, and it certainly gives me inspiration to get going on my stuff. But there's good information there and good tips that help me become a better modeler. So
the advice I would give is, it's amazing what you can get done when you actually work on the layout.
When you do it, right? Yeah, exactly. No, so I just again want to thank you. I want to thank the section crew tonight. We carried 70 people all the way to the end here.
Could I just chime in on something?
No, your microphone should be shut. Yes, of course. Jump in.
I want to revisit something Mike said earlier.
Okay.
Check this out. Okay, we're doing. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind.
No.
Hold on. Wrong one. Nope. No, I got it.
Okay.
Come on.
Okay.
Share this and that. And then go here. Look at this. Fresh cherries. Vehicles. Look at the
Oh.
prices on eBay.
Woo.
Red box.
Red box.
That's all I see.
Oh,
man.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a 1974 AMC Hornet for $23. A 75 Honda Civic for $22.99. I mean,
They should be like, $5 or $8. You know what I mean? And
a lot of them are 12, like right around $12.
right. They used to be sold in Walmart, believe it or not.
Really?
Among other
Really?
places. I mean, hobby shops had them too, but I guess Walmart had carried them at one time.
And they also, just for our multi-scale people that are in here, S-scale friends, they have them in 164th. Red Cherry did 164th. They did 187th.
Huh.
And I believe, I'm just going to do this quick. I thought I saw some 148th scale. Nope. Must not have been that. So, but yeah, that's go on, hop on eBay and pick up your Pacer.
I'm gonna get my. I was looking for a place to get 70s autos, and that's.
Yeah.
Derek asked if I have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
But of course, Mike Rose Hobbies.
Mike Rose Hobbies,
Yep.
and then
I've got
just
a number of mediocre videos there. Maybe there's one or two good ones.
Yeah,
there is one of me drilling the holes in the foundation worth the price of admission.
I haven't seen that one yet. Now I am gonna go and watch. I've heard stories about the drilling experience. So I want to.
It's not a long one, but it's worth watching.
I want to see the struggle. I want to see the struggle.
Yeah.
But this has been fantastic, Mike. You're a fantastic personality to have on the show. Thank you for coming on. And we truly appreciate it. I'm going to put all of your contact info, the mrhobby.com, your YouTube page, your Facebook page. I'll get those up in the show notes so that way people can go in and reference that for future I guess reference. I'll use that circular term there, and make sure that you can go see Mike drilling holes in concrete. I can't wait to watch this. So, Mike, Rose, before we tie down tonight, any final thoughts that you want to leave with the crew?
I guess I would just say it's been fun as always, and maybe we'll catch up in the spring and talk about the Kaiser Valley a little bit.
I'd love to have you back on, Mike. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the section crew. And hope you guys all enjoyed this one. This is a great show. Thanks, everyone, and good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.